Alright, I got this book because it's just easier for me to be able to write in things and take notes and stuff. So I also have an online subscription for a year for a book, but I find this easier. So the oil pressure for this engine is supposed to be 40 to 60. Eventually I'll get around to checking that. Then got the specifications here for what I'm about to do. These are the connecting rod bearing cap bolts for the gasoline engine, step 1 and step 2. And those are in foot-pounds, because it says up here that, and if it's not indicated, it's foot-pounds. And then page 2C-20, paragraph 43 and 49, I got to read that a while and before I do it and kind of follow those instructions. And then down here further, there's the main bearings. I think I'm going to do these first because it really doesn't say which ones to do first, although I think it does have them in order, 2C20 and 2C22, to do the rods first when you read the book straight through. So those are the pages. These are the settings. So 30 pounds and then additional 90 degrees. And then the side bolts are 22 pounds and additional 90 degrees. So 2C20. This shows you all the stuff that can happen to bearings. Alright, this one is paragraphs for doing the bearing caps. You're supposed to go through and oil them properly and everything, and after they're all connected you're supposed to spin it to make sure it's free and stuff like that. So you'll want to read that. I'm not going to read it. And then it has a picture for the tightening sequence. You do these first for the mains. It doesn't have a tightening sequence for the picture for the rods, but here's the final installation, all except for, and then 34 to 38 is the good stuff. So you follow those instructions. It says to tighten the bearing caps into 144 pounds or inch pounds, and then push the crank forward using a screwdriver or pry bar. That's probably important to seat the thrust bearing. And then once the crankshaft is pushed fully forward to the seat, to seat the thrust bearing, leave the screwdriver in position so that pressure stays on the crankshaft until after all main bearing cap bolts have been tightened. I'm guessing that's probably important. And tighten the cap bolts in the 2 steps that are listed. So I gotta go back and make sure that that torque setting is right and do the screwdriver deal. And it also says up here that you can tap the bearings in with a brass hammer to make sure they're seated when you're getting your first torque settings. And then this is for the side bolts. And that's for the main bolts that I gotta go through. So all it's done but the doing, I guess, so may as well get out there and do it. Okay, so I ran each of these main bearing bolts out one at a time and dunked it in the oil, and then wiped off the excess like the instructions said to wipe off the excess. Then I put them all back in, finger tight, like the instructions said. I didn't use my fingers, I used a wrench because it was easier, but they're very loose now. I'm going to go through and with an inch-pound wrench, and I'm going to torque each one in sequence to 144 inch-pounds to get the first setting started. Okay. Excuse me. I was very careful to not put the screwdriver on the bearing cap. When I pushed it up in there, I kind of tapped it in to drive the crank towards the front bumper to hold it there. I did not jam it in there very hard, just enough to hold it in place. Now I'm going to torque down the main caps in sequence as the book says. Okay, I got my wrench set to 30 foot-pounds. Now, according to this diagram, I'm going to go up here and tighten them all to 30. And then I'm going to use this tool here to get my 90. Alright, that's a setup for the second bolt I've torqued. Okay, you just get it in the right perfect spot so where it's reading 0. And then you turn it till it's reading 90. Works out pretty good. I wanted to show how I got to this. I was actually standing over here. And looking right there. And cranking right there. And 0. There we go. It's about 40. Come on. Dial indicator's trying to twist. That's 60. That's 70. Oh, good twist in. 72. Gotta reset it, it moved. $72. $90. $92. All right. That worked. Good thing I was paying attention. It was trying to wobble like this as I was doing it because I was on the knuckle, and so while it wasn't, I was paying attention to where it was, so that when I straightened it back out, I was able to move this and put it back where it was. And I just went to 92 because I felt like it was more in line. So those are the hardest ones right there for the second one back from the front because the cross member's in the way. Those are the hardest ones. Yep. All right, so for these, since I won't be able to see the indicator, I'm going to make a mark on the side, and I'm going to move that black mark there to the bottom. 0 to 90, side to bottom. Can't be that hard. Okay, so the main caps are done. And now I got to do the rod caps. First I'm going to rotate the engine again and make sure it's not binding up. So I'm sure it's not. Yeah, it feels good. I don't think there's a order here, so I'm just gonna get those ones down. Start at the back and work my way forwards. Alright, I torqued all the cap bolts, and I'm pretty sure I got them all right. I'm certain, actually. You want to make sure that you're in a good position, because the last thing you want to do is slip off and not know where you were at. So make sure that when you do this, you got all your ducks in a row and you're going to have a good clean pull and you're not going to slip off or nothing. And it'd work out good. So all these are torqued, and online it said between 90 and 120 on the... Anyway, from what I looked up, it's not like an exact perfect number, but I did go off of what this book here said, so it should be good, but a little over what this book said would be okay according to the Mitchell book, so that should be all right. There's a little room. Okay, so now that these are all torqued down, I think the next thing I want to do is figure out how to pump some oil up into that hole and make sure that that oil pump has plenty of oil in it to be primed. It's the only way I can think of to do it, and I really probably should. I think I should do it, and I really haven't read that anywhere. But so the next step after that would be to get the suction tube and the oil pan up there and get those bolted in. One thing to note is that there was silicone on these four corners, and that's obviously I would zoom in, that's a different plate, and there's silicone between there and that, and so I'm going to put some silicone here and here, and same thing on that front timing cover. On those parting lines I'm going to put some silicone, but there wasn't ever any silicone anywhere else, so probably not necessary to do the whole thing or anything. Well, I am going to look it up. So the oil pan to engine block bolts are 18 inch-pounds, step 1. Then step 2 is 15 foot-pounds, and then step 3 is tighten an additional 60 degrees. But before that, the oil pickup tube to main bearing cap is 15 to 22 foot-pounds, and the oil pump pickup tube to oil pump bolts are 89 inch-pounds. I don't know how I'm going to get a torque wrench in there, but I'm going to try like hell because it's important that those stay tight. That's the oil pan tightening sequence for V8. That's for the V10 right there, so that's what I'm going to have to use to do in my oil pan. Yeah, you're not going to believe this, but I did get a torque wrench in there in inch pounds, and I got one in the back too. So now it was this torque wrench here, nice and small, and I used a deep well on one and a short well on the other, and I got that one. I took the nut to 32, and then that one is 89 or 90 inch pounds. But that nut was 32 foot-pounds, and then the other ones was 89 inch pounds. So now I got the gasket maker up there, and I'm gonna put the oil pan bolts in. Okay, I got the starter in, and the oil pan's torqued down. So next is the oil cooler. I got to get that back in place, and then the motor mounts, and then I can drop this back down on the motor mounts. I got the oil cooler in. I had to start by starting this bolt here with just a couple threads. Well, wait. No, I didn't. I had to put the bolts in there because that didn't work. I had to put a couple bolts in there, and then the gasket on that side screws the bolts, can hold the bolts in, luckily. So I was able to line it up and get one bolt started as another bolt was falling out, and get another bolt started as another bolt was falling out, trying to get the other four over there. I eventually got all four started, and then now I came back here and screwed that one in. So it was kind of a pain in the butt. Good luck with it if you do it. The motor mounts in, and I'll admit it, I got ahead of myself putting the starter in. Lost myself about 15 minutes. But that's in. Now the starter's gonna go back. AC pump is back in. That was the hardest part of this whole job. Holding that up and lining up one of the bolts. I ended up lining up this one. You could see it the best. Even though you'd think you could see this one, I struggled for about an hour holding this thing up, trying to get a bolt in. I finally got that one. And then the rest of them went in after that. That thing gets heavy, I'll tell you what. Well, shit. There's the dipstick. I got the new one in. It goes up there. Anyway, I got that in, but I had to sand it down quite a bit because it was too big, and then I made it kind of too loose, but the O-ring, it fits a little tight, so it wiggles around a little bit, but that is what it is. If it leaks, I'll have to just get another one. Alright, I got the radiator back in, shroud on, the oil's in. I gotta still put the intake on. I need a gasket for that. And the fan's spinning free. Still need to put the belt on. I need to figure out how to disconnect the fuel pump and then turn it over until I see oil pressure. I've already turned it over a little bit because the key's off. But I don't know if I'm getting oil pressure, so I'm just gonna wait. It's getting late. Still gotta put the spark plugs and the coilovers back in and all that too. And we're getting there.